Hey, Dave LeCali with HeadGames Motorworks. Today, we are going to pit our Gen 1 Coyote program against a mighty Ford Voodoo. Which one wins? Be sure to keep watching. Now, you're probably wondering, why are we going to pit these two together? Well, of course the Voodoo is going to win because it's CNC from the factory, has a much larger valve, has a bigger bore, has a bigger port, and it's readily available. It's $2,600. You can just go get it against the Gen 1. The Gen 1, this is going to be a CNC ported head from HeadGames Motorworks. So we're going to pit our head, and it has GSC power division valves in it. It has bronze guides. It has a valve job, and it's CNC ported. Which one do you think is going to win? Oh boy, you guys are in for it. So let's take a look at the numbers, right? All right, so let's look at the exhaust numbers first. Let's put them up here, Toby. So we're talking, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the numbers here too. 10 CFM, pretty much everywhere below 300 lift, and right around 300 lift on the exhaust. The Gen 1 is pretty much dead even with the Voodoo. How is that possible? Bigger valve, CNC porter from the factory, has to be the baddest dude on the planet. HeadGames head, stock size valve, 45-degree valve job, beats it. Not to mention that the Voodoo has a 40-degree seat, and the 40-degree seat is supposed to be better down low than our 45, but that's a different story. All right, so on the intake side, things were a little bit different between 1 and 200 lift because the Voodoo pretty much had 20 CFM on it. 150, it beat it, and then by 200 lift, we are dead even, right? And then at 250 lift, the Gen 1 smaller valve, whoops that ass by 20 CFM. 20 CFM throughout the rest of the range. And I am just so freaking excited. So I guess up to 500 lift, we are pretty much dead even. So the fat mid-range is where the Gen 1 pretty much shines. It's a smaller port. It means it'll make more torque, and it has a smaller valve. All that stuff. So now you have a combination of parts that you don't have to go and buy a cylinder head. You don't have to buy special gaskets, especially if you guys have a smaller bore. So the bore size, I think, is the biggest problem that you're going to have here if you're going to be the guy who wants to do a Gen 1 and a Voodoo, because the Voodoo head is just so freaking gigantic in the bore size. All right, so a long time ago, about a couple months back, I got involved in, I just love Alejandro Flores's podcast. It is hilarious if you guys have not seen him. I just love him. Like, he gives me a lot of insight on, and he's good food for thought, and he's freaking hilarious. You will just barrel laugh a lot in his thing. Well, maybe if you're sick like he and I, but anyway, we brought up porting a cylinder head, and I think a lot of guys think that it's not worth porting the Coyote. It's not worth porting it because there is a CNC cylinder head that's available, and this was Alejandro's Alex's idea was that, you know, if you're going to go to a ported head, like that's the guy. And I think I get it because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of not a lot of the Ford guys just don't talk to each other. So there's not a lot of knowledge of what these heads are. Now, what we just showed is a Gen 1 head can outflow the mighty Voodoo, or at least hang with it. And it's a smaller valve, it's a smaller port, it's not, and you're still going to use the Gen 1 timing components if you're going to put it in a Gen 1, a Gen 2, or a Gen 3. The problem is the bore size is going to really be a hindrance if you're going to do anything other than a Predator block, because the bore size on the Voodoo is bigger than all of them. So if you're going to put it in there, and then if you're going to put the big valve in a Gen 3 or under, then you're also going to hinder the head because the bore size and the valve size is now going to be shrouded to the bore. I think this would make it timing sensitive. I don't know about that stuff though. Alejandro would probably be your guy to ask that. But I mean, this is just, you know, food for thought. On price, the price of the ported cylinder head from HeadGames and the price for getting yourself into a Voodoo head is about the same. But the combination is a little bit different. You're going to get the smaller valve, you're going to get a smaller port, you're going to also get the right size bore, and you're going to get bronze guides. The difference here is that the bronze guide is going to add a natural lubricity, and it's going to be made, or it's going to be sized to your valve. I think that's going to be a big attribute. Now, it also dissipates heat better. Bronze dissipates heat better, so it is better than the steel guide that's going to come in the Voodoo. The other thing is that the Voodoo doesn't have a 45-degree valve seat, so you're still going to have to get machine work done to this thing in order to put an aftermarket valve in it, which is what the Gen 1 already comes with. Is the Gen 1 really a value over, or a Gen 2, even a Gen 3? I think that they're a better value than the Voodoo, unless you're going with that Predator block and you're going to make big power. It doesn't matter because this head can actually outflow it. It's the right size bore, it's the right size valve, and you are just better off. Now, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, comment below, because and hit that subscribe button, because we're going to put the Gen 2, so we're going to do the Gen 2 against our CNC ported Gen 2 and our Gen 3. We're going to go against the Voodoo, because I think that the Voodoo is going to get a little beat up here. And I'm not saying it doesn't have a place. I'm not saying that like I hate the head. I actually like the head. But our Voodoo, and actually we're going to CNC port the Voodoo too. We're going to CNC port the Voodoo that's already CNC'd, and we're going to make it better. And when I say better, I don't mean like we're going to like pick up a whole bunch of CFM. Here, we're going to pick it up and make it more efficient, because that is the name of the game. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Toodles.